All right. We're getting started here in 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. Glad to be with you. Let me get you my face right here. How you doing? Michelle Barron, SUNY Cortland Career Services. Glad to be with you here today. We are going to get started here. We are talking about revving up your resume today and what it's going to take for you to be career ready. This is part of our Work It Out Wednesday series with Career Services this semester. Today, we're talking about resumes in October 5th, talking about practicing your pitch interview essentials, what it's going to take for you to be successful in those interviews. Then what do you need to do to level up your LinkedIn presence? That is coming in November, and in December, we are talking about networking and strategy for your winter breakthrough. So that is what we are doing here this semester in career services and with our Career Ready Dragons. And let's go. First of all, who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I talking to you? And who are you? So I won't have a chance to be able to get to engage too much of the crowd today, but I want to introduce myself, let you know my name is Michelle Barron. I am a 2-time SUNY Cortland alum and 2 degrees in education. Came to SUNY Cortland thinking that I was going to be a guidance counselor when as a psychology major and secondary English major. And then I finished with childhood ed. Now I taught 3rd grade for 1 year. And then I realized this wasn't really quite what I was built to do for a variety of reasons. And those are things we talk about in the career development process and some of that stuff. So that is who I am. But again, all of my experiences right here at SUNY Cortland have shaped who I am, what I do, and who I am becoming. And that is the same thing for you. And so that's what we're going to talk about. What do we need to do to get that resume together? So we are going to go through this quickly, understanding what the goals. There's lots and lots of content to cover here. We're going to get to the essentials. We're going to create opportunities for questions. That's how we will break this down. First of all, I want you to understand the fundamentals of resume writing. What does it take to write an effective resume? I want you to be able to critique your own resume. Whatever you've got right now, I want you to be able to critique it with an eye toward any structural challenges or changes you know that you're going to need to make to get it ready for whatever it is that's next for you. Determine your goal in your timeline for improvement, because your goal is going to be different than your classmates, than your neighbor, than your housemate, than your teammate, any of those things. Your goals are going to be different. So understand what your goals are and what you're going to do, what your timeline looks like to get you there. And then ultimately what we're always doing here is helping us get career ready. So that is part of what we're doing here today, and we will talk about that as well. Next, what does your job market look like, right? Because the world of work, I talk about the world of work all the time. The world of work has done a lot of things changing throughout the years, throughout many years, but we know, especially within the last couple of years, there has been a lot of change going on in the labor market, and different sectors have different norms. So some of this, it's very important for you to understand that what you are doing, what you are going into, and if you don't even have that part of it, then this is part of the development of your resume as well, is to understand who you are, what are you going after, because creating a resume that just goes into every job across the country, across the world, is not going to get you the same outcomes as if you really understand who you are, what you're doing, and how you target these tools, all of these career readiness tools for your end goal. So let's talk about the purpose of a resume. What is the purpose of a resume? It is to highlight your candidacy, you as a student, you as an intern, you as an early professional, you as an alum, 20 years out, going into a new career, whatever that is. Your resume is to highlight your candidacy in the best way possible. You're going to highlight the skills, accomplishments, and experiences that you have that relate to the job you are trying to get, the thing you are trying to do. And it's going to look different for everyone. And there are lots of ideas about how to go about doing this resume, but I like to say there are principles, but they are not always rules, right? Because the rules don't apply across everything. Resume writing is a little bit more of an art than a science, or it's a little bit of both, right? So there's certain guidelines and recommendations for how you put this thing together in the best way possible. But there's also this kind of visual, aesthetic, readability pieces that can have a little bit of a creative edge or a customization to what it is that you specifically are trying to accomplish. So one of the things too to think about, and I'm using this as putting my profile here because also don't put, we in American resumes and CVs do not tend to put our profile picture on those resumes, but our profile picture is a really big deal in a lot of these digital spaces. We've got Handshake, I talk about LinkedIn a lot. So here's my general profile here of who I am, and thinking about this was me. If this wasn't me, this is me, you know, at some time after that. But if this is you as a SUNY Cortland student or whatever it is that you are doing right now, whatever that role is. So right now I am a senior SUNY Cortland major in sport management. That's who you are right now. But what we want to see on the resume is who are you trying to become. So it's not just what you have done right here at Cortland, but it is where are you going from there? And this is part of that challenge. The more you can show that you already have what it takes to do that next thing, that is how you are going to get those interviews. That is how you're going to land those jobs. So what I was over here as a SUNY Cortland student, I'm also becoming these other things. And so I listed some of those generic titles. Technically, career educator is a little bit more specific. It defines what I do right here, right now. But a lot of these other things, they're not particular jobs. These are more like who am I? Existential items or pieces of my identity that I value, that I want to accomplish. But along with that, knowing where you're going, whatever that is, whether it's long-term or whether that is this next step, whatever it is, next step out the door, next step after graduation, we have to start to develop our documents for what we want to be, not for where we are right now. So that's a little bit of a distinction. It takes some getting used to, but it's going to be really helpful if you can navigate that. All right. So how do you get there? How do you do those things if you don't have the experiences, you don't know how to put this together? I am so glad that you asked, because that's what we're working on here too with these career readiness competencies. So what we're going to, again, get back to this at the end. We are doing a really quick fly through of content, but career readiness is so much more than just a resume, than just knowing how to do an interview, than just knowing how to navigate that. But do you have the skills, experiences, and abilities to be successful both now and into your future? So that is what we are trying to do, and the resume is just one place where we get started in that. One of the questions we get answered all the time, what should I be including in my resume? We'll hit some of these things again. I am talking quickly. When you're doing it on replay, you can slow up, you can speed up, whatever it takes for you to learn this content. I just want to make sure that it gets in your brain, in your heart, in your whatever it takes for this to kind of stick in you, how important this stuff is. What are the common and standard elements in a resume? Contact information up top, what's your header? We'll talk about that stuff. Education, what is important, what is essential, what is critical for you to put in your education? And how do you know the name of our college? You know, a lot of people don't know the name of our college. They don't write the name of the college correctly on a resume. Fun fact. Other things to include is relevant experience. The things that are most critical are what is it that you have done that shows that you are capable of doing your next thing. So what is that relevant experience? Doesn't necessarily matter, especially for college students and in this early talent space. Doesn't necessarily matter whether it's paid or unpaid experience, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in field work, an internship, a co-op, whatever those things are, whether it's in your clubs or extracurricular activities. We know our SUNY Cortland students are often involved in many, many things. So do not limit what you're putting on the resume to just those paid jobs that you have had, because many of you, Cortland students in particular, are underselling yourselves with so many of the things that you are doing as students right here. Some other things to think about, and we'll talk about this as well. Highlights our profile section is we're seeing much, much more of that in this kind of quick, fast-paced corporate world, or a lot of these, the way that the jobs are working their way through is changing up the content at the top of that resume if you're going to stick to a one-page resume, making sure this stuff is the most important and top of the fold. Those of you who are familiar with some of those terms, get it above so that we are seeing that first thing that comes to mind. Objective, we may or may not, we talk about that. It's moved away in that highlights profile. We're seeing more and more of that. Certifications, if you have certifications, those are good places to list them. Professional development activities, scholarship, research, we'll hit a couple other ones, but those are some of the things you want to start to think about as you are putting this together. And start big. My encouragement to you is try to list it all. Try to list everything that you have done. It is always better to start with just a very long list that you can pull from, you can cut from, or when you start listing that stuff out and you realize that you don't have a whole lot of content, then you realize that you have some time right here while you're at Cortland to develop that stuff, to build that resume, to get those experiences. All right, so next question. Why can't I just use a template? You read this email that came out today. We know that templates are not great. And you say, well, what's that about? I mean, I just search online and I find a template and I work with that, right? Well, it ends up being problematic for many, many students, many professionals for a variety of reasons. But one of the challenges is the further you get along, the messier the template is, and then you want to just make some quick little changes and it won't let you do it, or you're going onto a separate page and all of it's locked in a way that limits you. And sometimes that works if you just got to kind of get something out quickly, but a lot of times you run into a lot of problems when you are working with those templates. And they're often, honestly, they're often designed by graphic design kind of folks who really are looking at what makes it pretty looking, but not what makes it practical from an employment and engagement standpoint. So I want you to think about that. The flashy colored ones, they can be used, but they are tricky. And unless you're really strong about that and really strong in your design standards, then those are things you probably want to avoid. If you like the template, if you really like, you know what, I love this thing and I want to keep it, you can take a look and to see what are the sizes of the fonts, what are the font styles, what are the things that are used within that really you like. And then you can recreate it yourself in a blank document. So I tend to encourage folks to start with a blank document, whatever that is. Microsoft Word is my preference these days, especially with what is going on with Microsoft 365 and its integration with LinkedIn. It's a really, really interesting tool that is continuing to develop and strengthen. And so I would encourage you to kind of take a look at some of that stuff, but do be careful. If you're using a template, I would strongly, strongly encourage you to take that content out of the structured template and to begin to rebuild it yourself in a document that you have more control over. Here's a sample up top. The sample that I'm giving is not perfect, but just something for you to think about. Usually it's that header up top, whether it's centered, whether there's a line across, your contact information right up top. If you're going to have a highlights or a profile statements, those will often go right into that next section. Typically in a traditional student resume, your education is going to be that next thing. Or if you're on a one-page resume, it could go at the bottom of the page. I do tend to be nervous of putting an education at the bottom of a second page because this is an important part of our experience for many of our students. But those are kind of the pieces that come up top typically, and then we will move into experience and we'll talk about a little bit more of what some of those things are, but that is the start. All right, another question. Does a resume have to be one page? Well, not necessarily. When we get questions in here, some people might be really frustrated by that, but I can't always, especially as a coach, as a career coach too, I can't give you definitive answers. What I need to do is help you find the answers to the questions that you have yourself, or give you questions that will help you consider the things that are going to make, again, the most sense for you and what your goals are. So does it have to be one page? Not necessarily, although there are a lot of industries that we're seeing more and more like we need it to be quick, we need it to be concise, you need to get to the point quickly. In different industry, education, nonprofit, you're going into academia, applying for graduate school, PhD programs, that's going to be a little bit different. probably want to list a little bit more of the specifics within your particular roles, or any lists of activities, scholarship, research, all of those sorts of things. But knowing what your audience is, knowing what they expect to see, knowing who your reader is. One-page resumes absolutely can be done. In some places it's harder to do than others. In some it's a norm and expected. So again, it does not have to be one page. If it's going to be one page, we want it to be really clean. Everything that goes on a resume should have a purpose, should have possibly multiple purposes, but everything that you put should have a reason for it being there. So along with that, what do you put on that contact info and header? This is going to depend on where it's going to, but one of the things that I often see is when students are listing their email and their cell phone numbers or their home line or whatever, if anybody has home lines, most of our students are using straight cells at these point. You don't need to write cell phone. You don't need to write email and then list your email. We know what a phone, the formatting for phone numbers look like, so you put that down. You don't need to say anything else but put the number. Same thing with the email. Number and email, those are going to be important things for people to be able to get a hold of you. We are moving away, or seeing more and more moving away from your actual home address on resumes, especially any resumes that are going to get uploaded into systems or online. And that is for a variety of reasons, but ultimately it's for your safety and protection. We don't want the entire internet to have that easy of access to your personal home address, those sorts of things. So we do want to be careful about our own personal private information, how we're putting it out there, where we are putting that out there, and which systems or public platforms we have them. And so we're often pulling the address out of it, your hometown possibly. You could have a region, you could have your city, but your actual physical home address is something we probably are moving away from for most resumes now. Another thing for you to think about, now is the time, if you have not done it yet, and you are hoping to have any sort of professional level role in your work, is to set up a good professional email and a professional voicemail. Now, our voicemail, in the age of digital, in the age of technology, we're used to using our phones, we're used to texting. Most of our students either don't have voicemails set up at all, or the mailbox is full, or they're not accepting messages. If you are a recruiter, if you are a hiring manager calling to try to get a hold of a candidate for a job, and there is no voicemail set up, and I have no message to let me know that I have gotten a hold of the person that I want to get a hold of, then that does not reflect on me very well professionally. And so those things too, same thing with email. If you are using an old email that you used from back in the day, and it is just feels young or immature, or doesn't illustrate a professional presence for you, because this is your goal as you're transitioning out. You need to help the next folks see, whatever your next hiring manager, your next company, your next org, you need them to know and to see that you are mature, you're professional, you're ready for that next thing. So if it's time to upgrade your voicemail, email, do it, please, I beg you. Objective. Do you have an objective? This, in years past, there were two things that were often put on there, and then we tended to get rid of it. One at the bottom, 2 references available upon request. Get rid of that at this stage in life. That is just a wasted line. There are different ways. If they need those, they will certainly ask for them. There's different ways to do that. But as you look through all of these different tools and resources, there are standards that have carried on for many, many years. There are different ways that have shifted throughout the years. So just some things for you to think about. If all you're trying to do is to say, my goal is to get a job at XYZ in this organization, that's probably not terribly useful, and that is what a cover letter tends to be for. So if you're applying for the job, clearly your intent is to be hired in that role. So there are ways to do it, but if it's simply redundant and my goal is to get a job, that is probably not a super valuable use of our valuable real estate on a document. And that's why that highlights in that profile section up top, again, that we're seeing more of that, because what that does is give you multiple bullet points to really target the specific role that you're looking at. So if you're looking at building a resume that is changes a little bit, but isn't getting changed all the time for everything, that's a nice way to do it. The top part will focus on the things that are really relevant to that role you're pursuing, and then what you've got below is things that aren't going to change quite as much as you go. So that's something for you to think about. You want to both quantify and qualify yourself whenever possible. So if there are ways for you to use numbers, stats, metrics, actual hard information to show and to demonstrate that you know how to do something in a real tangible way, those are going to be really important things for you to list in here, and show yourself qualified for whatever those roles, norms, expectations, job requirements, any of those things are. So that is part of what you are trying to do, again, with this document that's trying to get you to your next goal. Now, how do you want to list education? This is where people tend to get things wrong with. It's amazing how many times our students don't really have the specifics of their degree down, right? So what you need to know is the official name. There are two official names of the college. One, the State University of New York College at Cortland. That's the big, long official name. Or SUNY Cortland can also be used. So either one of those you can use, but I would encourage you to use the actual official name of your university. So what would show up on your transcripts, what would show up on any official documentation, that is what you want in here. One of the things I talk about in other spaces, we're not going to have tons of time for that because we are flying through content, is what if you are not representing yourself, there are some liabilities and some challenges if you are giving false information on your resume too. So that is a very, very, very big deal, that you are being truthful and accurate in what you are including on your resume. Do you know the specifics of your major? Do you have a concentration or a minor? Do you have a Bachelor of Art or a Bachelor of Science? You need to know the specifics and write that down carefully. Do you list a GPA, study abroad, dean's list? Maybe, maybe not. Again, these are some preferences that are going to go on in there as well. So we're doing a big, broad overview. This is getting us started, getting you to know we got some work to do. Here's a way that you would tend to list those experiences, where you are listing job title, the company that you work for, and then the dates where you worked there. And below it, you are having bulleted statements, typically past tense action verb statements in those bullets, to talk about the specific and measurable, ideally, things that you have done. Job title, location, dates. This is the most important piece. What you are trying to push to the top of the resume, which comes to the top of the recruiter's heart, mind, and eyeballs, is the things that are most relevant and most important to that role that you're pursuing. And so that is, you need to craft the resume in the language within your bullets to get to that, to say, yes, these are my experiences, these are my things that I have done, that I know how to do, that are also going to allow me to perform the role and the duties of this new position effectively. Reverse chronological order. So the most recent stuff is going to come first, and then you will go backwards from there. Most recent, most relevant, we want to push up. Less recent, less relevant, we start to push down on the resume, we push it off of the resume, or we tighten it up or shrink it down a little bit. Whatever you do, the most valuable stuff, we want to bring it to the top. And again, that is going to be different for each person. Here's an example. I gave two different bullets, kind of reworked the top and the bottom, because I don't necessarily love this example, but this is one that we have. So if you worked as a lab assistant in the SUNY Cortland biology department, you've got your dates, job title, company, dates. And then you have those bulleted descriptions. These are fairly simple ones. They can get much more mature, much more robust, but here's some basics to kind of get you started. Assisted students with Bio 110 lab requirements. Now, that's okay. But it doesn't give a whole lot of detail about, okay, well, what does that mean? What exactly do you do? So if you look at that bottom one, this might be a little bit more effective because, you know, outside of Cortland, who knows what Bio 110 is? And I don't even know if Principles of Biology is the name of it. I just made that one up. But it might be more valuable to say I supported 75 undergraduate students in the Principles of Biology lab. That one might be a bit more effective than the first. So those are ways that you start to develop, refine, get better at your bullets. other ways to think about what are some of the specifics that you're including. So they're saying provided one-on-one support to students on topics including, so here's where you get some specifics. The topics were anatomy, cell structure, identification of plant species. Now that might be enough in some places, but if you're going into other roles, you might really need to talk about what kind of plant species, what specific things were you doing in there? What kind of safety procedures did you have to encounter? Did you have any incidents? How did you respond to an incident under pressure or under emergency? So those are some of the things that you can do to enhance and to take that opportunity that you have. You've already had it, but you're not explaining it very well, and you start to explain that. We have got a couple different resources around here in the office online talking about action verbs, how to work on some of that language, but to avoid repetition and to be really clear in what you are talking about. Some other things you want to think about including additional experiences. Again, we are trying to push the stuff that is most useful and most relevant up top. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's paid or unpaid. Just put the stuff that is most valuable toward the top. Our students are doing a lot of really good work that are like SGA president, but a budget of $35,000 managing this or that or another thing. We are doing some really good things that are unpaid and part of kind of our student experience, our life experience, things that go on kind of outside of the traditional office or classroom. Make sure that you're including that stuff, especially to get started. If you're involved in research, scholarships, presentations, programs, conferences, events, any of those things are, again, good places to start. They may not stay there forever, but they are good places to start. These are all unique to you and your experiences and goals. I think I've already said that a few times, but I'll say it one more time. The further away you get from what it is you're trying to do, you list less and less, and we kind of talked briefly on that too. Any other things to think about including, and these sections will again vary depending on what your background and experiences are, but do you want to highlight anything specific? Leadership skills, is that something that's going to be essential to the kind of roles that you're looking at? Specific kind of awards, accolades, scholarships, certificates, we talked about that before, in professional development. These are really good ways to kind of fill out the details of your resume and to show your breadth of competency and professionalism and expertise. So those are things to list as well. Skills. A lot of times on those templates, we see the skills. I often encourage folks to remove the skills section unless they are hard skills. So if you've got language, if you've got technology, if you've got specific hardware, software abilities that are not the general skills that we will talk about, those might belong in the skills section. If you are saying hardworking, organized, dedicated, creative, those sorts of generalized soft skills, professional skills that we talk about as well, those don't need to be listed in a section. Show me that you've got those skills in the content of your bullets from your experiences. And all of those are part of our career readiness competencies, right? So we're going to see this again and again and again, trying to build this out to help us understand these are the skills that employers are looking for. So other than just this resume, what is it that you're doing with your time and experience right here at Cortland to make sure you have these different pieces so that when you leave here, you are ready for whatever that is next. We work straight from the career readiness competencies from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and those colleges and employers that work in this transition from college to career, these are the areas that they talk about being most critical and most essential for success in the workplace. Career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. Now there's ways to break that out, but again, this is a resume program. This isn't a career readiness program, but listen, pay attention, think about how you have these skills or how you will develop them and how you can articulate them, and you will see more. But take a look just with this. If you are participating in this program, you are making progress in developing both your professionalism, if you're listening to some of the overall general recommendations I've got right here for you, and you're certainly working on your career and self-development as you're working through this process. So each activity, each thing you're doing, in the classroom, out of the classroom, at home, at school, all of these things that are helping you to develop these skills if you are aware and take advantage of them. So I would encourage you to not just do them, but think about how you can start to articulate them as well. All right, that's flying through all of the things for resumes, talking about career competencies. There's a whole lot of other things that are involved in career development. So, and we didn't hardly touch on cover letters. So cover letters go hand in hand with those resumes, and they are an entirely different part of this process that you get to learn to work your way through. So we are certainly available, open, and happy to help you work that out as well. Start with that resume. Get it clean, get it comfortable, come and see us and let's engage with that. But the cover letter is going to be that next stop, and you get better with each of these resumes, cover letters. The more you do them, the better you get at it. And it's much better to start to practice on things that have less of a risk than the big job, the big opportunity you really want. You need to start getting yourself comfortable, practiced, so that it's just second nature that you are doing this a little bit more easily as you go now and down the road, because we are changing jobs, careers, occupations at a much quicker clip in our current and future kind of moments in society than what had been. So this is really important for us to continue to constantly refine these skills and to rework them as we go. Handshake and LinkedIn, huge valuable platforms. Handshake is going to be almost anything you need on the career side while you are here at Cortland. If you need an appointment with us, there are piles and piles of workshops from employers and all kinds of organizations looking to engage right in that platform with college students, early talent, people in their educational journey looking to transition from college to career, or in that kind of beginning stages of a career. Now, LinkedIn tends to have folks that have been in the process even longer, so a longer kind of professional history, very rich, tens of thousands of Cortland alumni that are throughout that platform, lots of ways that you can engage, leverage that, and the intelligence, the artificial intelligence, the technology that is helping these tools be better at what they do is making it better for us to start to sink in our skills and abilities into jobs or companies or organizations or opportunities that we may not have ever known even existed had we not participated. So keep going, don't stop. This is just the beginning of your career development work. You can come see us for document drop-ins, so resume, cover letter, personal statement reviews, grad school, if you're starting to think through those. We are here in the office and virtually every Monday through Thursday during the academic semester. This tends to not change, but just in case, we are recording this, and, if in 2 years this is still out in the interwebs, I don't know that this is going to be the exact same hours, but here's what we got for right now. In person and via WebEx, go to cortland.edu/career, career services homepage to get information, or just pop in here Monday through Thursday, 1 to 3. You don't need an appointment. You just come in, bring that document, bring whatever, get started. And then we will help you move that from where you are into those next steps. And we have done it many times. So if you have any questions, I encourage you, take a look again at what's coming up in October. We've got interview essentials. In November, LinkedIn and professional presence. December, networking strategy for your winter break. My name is Michelle Barron, Associate Director right here in Career Services. It has been my pleasure speaking with you this evening, and I encourage you to engage in your career development from here forward. Have a wonderful night. Take care.